Oops. Sorry, folks. Let's try it again. Okay, goes with the sermon.
Sorry, it's all up there on the board.
It's all up there on the
Sorry.
board. Okay. You know, sometimes we go through life and we do that. We go and say, oops, I'm sorry. And sometimes we say it out loud, and sometimes we say it to ourselves. And many times for me, it's like, oops, I'm sorry, I did it again. It's like my thoughts and my actions went before me, and my mind just was not in gear. We have to admit that our thoughts have been not centered, and our mind has gone astray. And we found ourselves believing in appearances, answering in a way that wasn't appropriate because we have not been consciously aware of focusing on our truth. The path of unity has been interesting for me. I was not raised in unity, so most of my education came from a more fundamental church. And when we talked about sin, which we confessed it every Sunday, that we were sinners, and it was always the idea that, and I'm really grateful for the background I do have, so I'm not knocking it. It's just that I'm in a different place. But what the whole idea was, and it began to sink into my consciousness, that I would never measure up. And part of me began to say then, well, why should I try? Why should I even come from a place of saying, yes, God forgives me, but it seems like God never forgets what I do. And no matter what I do, it's never going to be enough. And that's a real sad place to be in, when your mind begins to question what it is you truly believe. And then one day I walked into a Unity church. And I thought, well, this is different, and no confession of faith for one thing. No telling me I'm not measuring up. No telling me that I'm a sinner. Telling me I'm whole and I'm complete and I'm in perfect communication with the Spirit of God moving in and through me at all times. And then I heard a couple of things that stuck with me on this journey. One of them was about sin. Now, many of you probably don't realize, and some of you have heard this, that sin is an archery term. And it means when they aimed for that target back there and they pulled back that arrow and they let it fly, if they missed the target, they sinned. They missed what? The mark. It was an error in their judgment. They had to correct it to bring it back to where it needed to be. I thought, well, that makes sense. You know, I make an error in my judgment all the time, error in my thinking, and I have to correct it. And it brings me back to my solid place of being in communication with Spirit. And then during my years at ministerial school, I would go to the Unity Chapel for Sunday service, and this one man got up and he said, I'm going to tell you what sin is. I thought, finally. And he said, it's self-inflicted nonsense. S-I-N. I thought, wow, that's a whole new light. And it turned my life around. I thought, yes, I'm going to make mistakes. Yes, I'm going to have to ask for forgiveness, but it's going to be given even before I ask. Because we come from a loving, non-judgmental God. Everywhere present, wherever we are. I wished I lived in an ideal world where every person I met I would see as a divine human being, where I could hold their truth that they are a child of God and perfect to the core of their being. There'd be no conflict, no criticism, no anger, no resentment, no guilt, no remorse. There would be no necessity of ever saying, I was sorry or asked for forgiveness. But, you know, we just aren't there yet, are we? Haven't quite reached that stage in our evolutionary process. There's still a need to ask for forgiveness, to say we're sorry, because we still sense sometimes it's a barrier of separation that blinds us to the fact that we believe less about another. I have found when I believe less about another, there's a part of me that's always talking to me. If I see a fault in you, guess where I have? I also have a fault within me. I've been a fan of Unity minister and author Terry Cole Whitaker and her books for many years. The first one that drew my attention was her book that says, "What you think of me is none of my business." And boy, I like that. I have gone through life thinking that I had to be the perfect daughter, I'd have to be the perfect wife, I'd have to be the perfect mother. People were going to be judging me all the time by my appearance or what I said or what I did. And that's a big burden to carry around, isn't it? And when I read this about what other people think of you is none of your business, it was like a breath of fresh air. I could release and I could let go. What others think of us is of no importance to us. We are not here to impress anyone or to measure up to anyone else's standards. We are to live our truth as we understand it to the best of our ability and not get caught up in all the external and internal dialogue that we hear and also we say about ourselves. This whole, I love that you picked that I release and I let go, because that's the whole focus of what we need to do. The whole idea about forgiveness is releasing and letting go of judgment. Stop seeing others and ourselves as less than we truly are. And when we are able to do this, we begin to live our lives, to live our, what Terry Cole Whitaker says, our bliss, in her next book, which is called Live Our Bliss. I'd like to read a part of that out of chapter 3. She writes, "Greatness is our destiny." How many of you heard that in your life? Okay, good, some of you. Being great means being who we are. We are greater than we think or have been taught to believe we are. What is possible for exist, we can do it beyond the stars, we are part of spirit and we are radiant, and that is the source and creator of the stars. We are connected, in other words. She suggests that we begin to honor who and what we are, and that same consciousness that created the problem that we find in our lives is the same consciousness, with a little tweaking, where we'll be able to solve them. Consciousness is being aware of how we interact with life, and we need to do that on a daily basis. You have within you the perfect example of all that's good and worthy. And if we go through life being conscious, we will constantly be, let's change that. If we go through life without being conscious, guess what we're going to have to constantly say? Oops. Sorry, did it again. Oops, sorry, I did it again. She's got a story in this book about two frogs. She says, 2 frogs lived in a deep well. They floated on pieces of wood and had the freedom to jump from rock to rock, jutting out from the sides of the well. Their food consisted of bugs that came their way. One day, a person dropped a bucket tied to a rope down into the well to get some water, and by an act of divine providence, one of the frogs was scooped up in the bucket and taken from the well. Outside the well, when the person dumped the water into another container, the frog jumped out into another world of sunshine and color and flowers and animals and trees and waterways and people and many delicious bugs. So excited was the frog that he immediately got into the next bucket to go down and tell his friend about the wonderful opulent place that he had visited. However, when the frog told them about it, the other one said, "You are a fool. There's no such place. It does not exist. It's a figment of your imagination. All that exists is our well. There is nothing else besides this well." And he said it emphatically and with the truth that he believed. Realizing that his friend would not come with him, the first frog said goodbye, left on the next bucket, up to the new glorious life, never looking back. What well are you in? Is it time to maybe think about freeing yourself from that self-imposed prism? Trying to second guess what others think of you and really being quite doubtful even what you think about yourself. Maybe our past has been difficult. Maybe our relationships have been less than perfect. Maybe there's been some joy, and maybe there's been some sorrow. But as long as we stay in the well, we are prisoners to what has been, and we are not conscious of all that is available to us. I have 3 things that we can do. Forgive yourself and others. Release the past. Look and affirm the good and positive in your life. I had lunch with my 2 sisters on Tuesday. It's always an experience. Most of the time we do very, very well. And it was a nice time. We started reminiscing about the past, the things we did as kids. And some were funny. Some were just too close to home. You know, it's so easy when you're around people that you've known your whole life to slide back into those roles that you were when you were a kid. I mean, there were times when we were growing up that we were not too nice to each other. We were never allowed to physically hit each other, but we sure could argue and call names and put each other down. And I think that's pretty typical in a lot of families. There were plenty of times that we just didn't click. And when I think about that, just saying, "Oops, sorry," doesn't quite make it, does it? No. It's like, get out of the past. Yes, we did those things. Yes, some of those things weren't very nice, but look at us now. You know, we're mature in our life. We really respect and love each other. We get together and it's a good time, even though we laugh at some of the things that happened in our life. Of course, I always remind them they have their own idea of what really happened and I have mine. So, and it doesn't always coincide. I was the youngest and they loved to pick on me. So what do you want to do? You want to stay in that nice, safe, deep well with its barriers where nothing can really hurt you, thinking that's all that ever exists? Or you're going to say, "Sorry, I just can't stay here. I've got to move on. I've got to release and let go of the past. I've got to forgive myself for the things that I've done that I didn't understand at the time were hurtful, and I've got to release and forgive myself." Starting over every day is a brand new day, isn't it? The next moment is a brand new moment. Haven't been lived before. You haven't been in it before. Look for the good, look for the positive. I found these little self-punitive beliefs that she says we should eliminate. She says, this is one of them, I think maybe some of us have been there. If I suffer enough, I will be rewarded. Have you heard that one? If I have enough problems, others will feel sorry for me and give me what I want. If I hide myself and repress my talents, then no one can criticize or hurt me. It's not fair to be happy and prosperous when others are unhappy and struggling. If I'm miserable, then this will make others miserable for what they have done to me and failed to do for me. Spare me. Spare me from this victim mentality. I'm sorry to tell you. No, I'm not. This is above behavior is nonsense. It's a sin. It's self-inflicted nonsense. You got to release and let it go. I just can't believe we want to go through life that is fear-based, guilt-based, judgment-based. A life where we continue to relive our past mistakes. Oh, geez, let it go. It's time to take responsibility for our own feelings and our own actions. Not blaming others, not pointing fingers, and not saying, well, it's not my fault. It's what you made me do. Excuse me. Who made you do it? Who told you to get angry? Who told you to hold on to your resentment? Who told you to feel guilty about being here? Breathe. Release and let go. That's a heavy burden to carry around. I don't know how many times in my own life I've caught myself blaming someone else for something that's happening in my life. And they're not responsible for it. I am. I'm responsible because I got hooked. I'm responsible because I didn't stop and ask for guidance. I'm responsible because I didn't look at it and say, that's not the truth of my being. And what you think of me is really none of my business. And I'm going to move on. I'm going forward. I'm going to be all that I can be. And with God's help and God's guidance, when I make a mistake, I'll know that I'm already forgiven. And I can start fresh. I can start new. What happens when we begin to forgive ourselves? Just possibly when we begin to look at that and we begin to forgive others and we begin to forgive ourselves for things that we have classified as mistakes, is there a possibility that they have not been mistakes? It's been a learning process. You've heard me talk many times, and you know it always comes back to who? Yourself. And it's a learning process. We are here to learn, to come up higher in our consciousness, to be aware of God's presence moving in and through us, to breathe and be. You think that'll change the world if we try to do that? Well, certainly changes us, doesn't it? And if it changes us, it'll eventually do what? Change the world. It's a paragraph from her book. Once we stop judging others as not good enough and stop criticizing others in order to feel better about ourselves, the not good enough program running in our subconscious will fade and disappear because of lack of faith. I'm going to put energy in that. If we don't give it any energy, it'll stop. You do not need to prove to anyone anything or anybody in order for you to feel good. Feel good just because you are pure goodness. We are not here on earth to seek approval of others, and we already have God's what? Love and approval. Accept it. And forget all the soap opera stories of who did what to you and when. Release. Let go. Don't live in the past. Accept your good right here, right now. She has a line here that I really, really appreciated. She said, accept every soul, including your own, to be pure goodness and perfect, without flaws of any kind. Can you do that? Can you breathe that in? That's a pretty tall order, isn't it? Accept every soul, including your own, to be pure goodness and perfect, without flaws of any kind. Well, I don't know. We still have to say time to time, oops, sorry. Most likely, won't we? Because we have yet to manifest in an ideal world that can be so perfect that everybody will hold everybody else in the highest regard and esteem and see the Christ presence within them. See, the Spirit of God is moving all the time. It's not stagnant. It's flowing. It's moving. It's changing. God doesn't change, but the energy changes. And as we change, we begin to make that connection with Spirit. And that is freedom, my friends. That is freedom. We have some wonderfully trained chaplains here in this church. Chaplains who will pray with you, hold the truth for you, keep that sacred watch for you. However, they will not counsel you and try to tell you what to do. Now that's refreshing, isn't it? That's not their job. They are not the cause of your emotions. They are not the cause of your actions. They are there to do what? Listen, to hold the sacred space, and to affirm that God is present in your lives and in the people you love, and you are surrounded by unconditional love. They are here to help you to attune your mind to your spiritual potential. God as source. God as wisdom. God as guidance. You will not be given any act of contrition to do. Nothing is required from you, just to be introspective and to be in that place where you desire to move forward. And hold your truth for yourself and for those with whom you pray. Release and let go. That's probably the biggest one right there. Let go of the past. We live in the future. We live in the now. That's where we need to be. So we close this morning's lesson. I'd like you to go inside for a few moments. Let's take a deep breath and be quiet. Open your mind. Open your heart to receive. Take a breath. Today, I accept that every soul, including mine, is pure goodness and perfect. Today, I assume responsibility for my own feelings and actions and hold my truth of being, where I am a perfect child of God. Today, I understand that others are the cause of their own emotions and actions, and I support them in their unfoldment as living, loving people who are created by their Creator. That there is a new reality of truth for them in their lives. And today, I forgive myself and others. Oh, I release and I let go of any attachment to the outcome that I might have, and freely acknowledge Spirit as working in and through each one of us in this room. I am so grateful for the knowledge and the journey. And the journey continues. Not like it was yesterday, not like it'll be tomorrow. It continues today, in this moment. And I breathe, and I release, and I move forward. And so it is. So you probably thought you were going to get away without an assignment. Well, I have one for you. This is to forgive yourself and others. That's your first one. To release the past. That means you can't dredge it up anymore, okay? To look for the good and the positive in people. Want me to repeat those? Okay. What are you to do? To forgive myself and others. Say it out loud. Forgive myself and others. To release the past. To look for the good and positive in people. And then give thanks. Now, isn't that easy? Yeah. Have a marvelous day. Have a marvelous week. Be good to yourself and those around you. Namaste.
Namaste.